Town of Wakefield, I'm Ralph. I'm here to take probably too much of your time to go over what some of us concerned residents of Wakefield have to say and feel about the two warrants coming up in front of the voters on the second Tuesday of March. I believe it's the 12th day of March this year. I'd like to say that there's a lot of people involved in different offices and positions and commissions in the town, like the budget committee, school district, all that stuff. Many dedicated volunteers who do their best to make sure that they're doing the right thing for the taxpayers and the residents in the town of Wakefield. I have questions about some of the warrant articles for both town and the school district, and I'm compelled to do a counterpoint to the presentations that our town administrator have already done and the vice chair of the school board. On the town ballot, the first 4 articles, they're planning articles, and it's really up to your own personal conscience, how you vote on that. Seems like housekeeping issues. There's one thing that the Article 4, I believe, wants a permit, $25 permit to have a campsite, which is somewhat ridiculous. But again, that's your conscience, your vote, and it's all going to be good. Article 5 is $50,000 to pave the parking lot down at the public safety building. And it is overdue. It could be overfunded at that amount. It's hard for me to tell. It's been a while since I've done any paving jobs, but I think my main point here today is to try to convince a lot of voters that this year's spending and the increases that it's going to take to get all of this accomplished is not good for everybody in town. I'm going to try to encourage the voters to do a just say no effort. We have the ability to control government spending when we exercise that ability through the ballot box. I don't think all of these presentations, all of these articles are bad or unworthy of a yes vote, but in order to express our heartfelt message, there's only really one way to get the message as clear as possible, and that is to say no to these things. They're all going to affect our tax expenses. So the $50,000 on the parking lot, it may be something that would cost a little bit less. I think we could do without paving that parking lot for another year. That would certainly keep our taxes down. Article 6 is to see if the town will raise $45,000 to purchase and install 3 radio repeaters and 13 digital portable or mobile radios for the Department of Public Works. Seems that money is a pretty big number. It states that the warrant article will be in a non-lapsing appropriation. It won't lapse until the repeaters and radios are fully operational, or December 31st, 2020, whichever is earlier. I don't understand why. I had understood at one point that we had already put monies aside, not only for the police department, the fire department, but also the highway department. So this almost seems a little redundant. Again, if we want to control our taxes, we need to control our spending. I'm going to say that 100 times, and you'll be sick of hearing that, but it's one way out. Article 7 is to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate $75,000 to be added to the Bridge Construction Capital Reserve Fund previously established. This article was amended up $50,000 by a vote of the people at the deliberative session, and it is absolutely true that we do need to take care of our bridges and our infrastructure. There's been opportunities to get away from calling them bridges. Overpasses or culverts can take care of a lot of these issues, and I don't know why, but it seems to be rejected. $75,000 in a capital reserve fund will help achieve the end goal, you know, of bringing everything into safety standards. This year, if we need to get, I believe we need to get the message out there. Let's say no to this capital reserve fund appropriation for 1 year. All of these articles, they can be rewritten, dates change for next year. I don't think the town's going to suffer. Article 8, see if the town will raise and appropriate $40,000 to be added to the ambulance capital reserve fund. So the ambulance capital reserve fund, they try to get a new ambulance when it's due. Many times what a municipality may call due might have 100,000 more miles of life in it. And all right, so back to this. It's the ambulance capital reserve fund currently has $85,451, and to add $40,000 will bring it up to $125,451. That's about probably 2/3 of the cost of a new ambulance, I would say. My question is, do we really need that ambulance to be replaced? It does seem we have 2 of them, I believe, utility SUV type, big trucks, I shouldn't say SUV types. They're like 1-ton trucks. Again, there's money in the ambulance capital reserve fund. It's building interest. Article 8 could take a year off. The taxpayers deserve it. Article 9, see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $75,000 to add to the fire truck capital reserve fund. That fire truck capital reserve fund currently has $223,494.13. This appropriation to raise it would bring it to nearly $300,000. I think the $223,494, that's pretty close to, I mean, I'm not sure the cost of a brand new fire truck, but I don't know if we're on the way to building up for that ladder truck or not, but it seems, again, we're building interest on that $223,494. Taxpayers of the town need to be able to find some relief. This is another article I feel as though should wait. It can wait another year. Article 10 is to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate another $75,000 to be raised to the Highway Heavy Equipment Capital Reserve Fund. That is down to $2,688.36 at the end of December. But we also bought a whole bunch of new things, 2 new trucks, which were paid out over $700,000 to, I believe it was Freightliner of New Hampshire. Our Public Works Director did a pretty good job of taking a piece of equipment that was oversized for the town, traded it in wisely, and we got a new excavator, I believe a new loader. I think the highway department's in pretty good shape as far as equipment. There are now 1 truck that I had noticed setting right beside the barn for almost all winter. I don't know if it's waiting to be hauled away. Just snow piled up on it. So it seems like we have an extra truck. I think, again, take a year off from that one. Article 11, was to raise $75,000 to the transfer station heavy equipment capital reserve fund. Now, I'm not sure about everything in the past, but I believe there was an effort at one point to make sure that the transfer station and the highway department worked hand in hand to get things done. And I know at one point they were sharing a backhoe, sharing responsibilities on that. It seemed like it was working. The new fund, I don't even see it, transfer station capital reserve fund right now is $146,421.47 in it. So that would bring it up to just about $225,000. And I'm not sure that is an expense the town can afford to carry this year. It's Article 12, the sum of raise and appropriate the sum of $30,000 to be added to the Invasive Species Expendable Trust Fund. This one, invasive species, has $7,798.60 left in it. This one, to me, is a lot like a capital reserve fund they tried to raise and appropriate for the Union Dam. There's many lakes that are our tax base. The problem I have is the attitude of the town that will raise and appropriate these funds, but the goal is ignored when we don't spend $300 or $500 putting culverts in Class 6 roads that lead to contamination and pollution of one of our water bodies. Taxpayers are asked to raise and appropriate, and the town employees fail to share the same common goal of keeping the water qualities pristine. I'm not saying we shouldn't be protecting our water bodies. I'm saying that we need to be watching the folks that are executing the will of the people. If we raise and appropriate $30,000 for this, we should be taking every step possible and not ignoring any step to maintain the quality of our water bodies. It's like throwing good money after bad. The situation on one particular water body is only going to get worse with each and every storm. It's probably going to cost a lot more than $30,000 to rectify the issue. $300 to $500 would have fixed it. 8 hours of town crew out there putting it in could have fixed it months ago. So that just smacks of are we getting what we're paying for? You know, do we raise and appropriate monies and see the real result, or are we willingly and knowingly casting that goal aside? Certainly a reason to vote no on that article. Article 13, they want $45,000 to be added to the police cruiser capital reserve fund. Again, I'm noticing driving by the public safety building, noticing vehicles covered with snow, haven't been moved for a while. I don't know the age or the mileage on these vehicles, but if they're not in use now, is there truly a need for them tomorrow? Can the taxpayers truly afford a brand new cruiser each and every year and all of the amenities that go with it? Certainly up to the voters, but I would encourage a no vote on that article as well. By the way, the capital reserve fund for police vehicles has been reduced down to $772.89 currently in that capital reserve fund. So they're trying to build it back up, get ready for the next purchase. Article 14 is asking for $11,000 to be added to the Technology Capital Reserve Fund. The Technology Capital Reserve Fund right now has $2,806.86 in it. This is for computers and upgrades, the copiers and stuff like that at the town hall. It seems like we're asked every year to invest in that fund. It does look like it's been being spent. I don't know how much technology, I know it gets better and better every year. I can't deny that. But I don't know that our technology is so obsolete that it needs to be replaced or upgraded every year. Again, I'd ask for a no vote on that one. Moving along to Article 15, $10,000 to add to the Town Hall Improvement Capital Reserve Fund. This is something that I'm not against, Article 15. If there's anything in this town that we should be investing in, it is our town hall. It's our history. There's a lot of things that need to be done, keeping in mind the historical significance of the town hall. There's hoops and hurdles to jump through every time something is improved at the town hall, but it's a costly process. Currently, in that capital reserve fund, there's only $8,875.38. I think that's one article that would improve our town hall, improve the character of our town, and help all of the people in town have an appreciation for what we have worked hard to preserve. Doesn't mean your taxes won't go up by approving that. Again, I'm here to say, it should be just say no this year. Article 16, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate $237,500 to be added to the Highway Construction Project Capital Reserve Fund. In 2018, the town received $138,348 from state highway block grant funds. Right now, in that, let me find it real quick. Highway road projects is only $63,996.56 left in that capital reserve fund. It's pretty hard to maintain the roads without it. Roads are being improved, but I drive on most of them all the time, and there's some roads that certainly need to be improved upon. Disregarding the just say no theme, this is probably a wise investment. Can we go another year without it? We probably could. Will the spenders in the government get the message of take it easy on the taxpayers by approving this article? Probably not. So, my main theme is to say no to wasteful government spending. I wouldn't consider this wasteful, but when you're operating a bottom line budget and you're saving monies in one area, robbing it to pay an overage on another area, that's wasteful spending. Article 17 is to raise $5,000 for the Assessing Statistical Update Capital Reserve Fund. We just did a reval, and it cost us an extra $28,000, I think, something like that, above and beyond our annual contract. Our annual contract will cover a 20% statistical update every year on a 5-year cyclical thing. The intent of this article, I believe, is to make sure that the money's there instead of raising and appropriating a large sum all at once every 5 years or so. There's some logic to this. It sways away from the idea of just saying no. I think, again, 1 year, this year, we need to treat our taxpayers with some respect. Article 18, they're asking for $5,000 to be added to the Greater Wakefield Resource Center Capital Reserve Fund. That currently has a lot of needs down there. The building itself and the Capital Reserve Fund have $9,723.46 at the end of December 31st in it. It's not a whole lot of money to be doing a whole lot of upgrades or maintenance. There's good reason to raise and appropriate that money, but again, it takes away from the message that the taxpayers need to have a break. Article 19 is to raise and appropriate $28,500 for replacing the dugouts in the ball fields for Parks and Rec Department. The special warrant article is a non-lapsing appropriation and won't lapse until either the dugouts are replaced or December 31st, 2020, whichever is earlier. Now, there's a need there, but I often wonder where our priorities are with this. The kids are and should be a priority. Their safety should come first. I wonder whether or not there's monies already in the Parks and Rec Department's funds to cover this cost. I'm not seeing that capital reserve fund. I know that Wayne does a pretty good job of managing his own funds. I just question whether or not, I like the 4th of July and everything else, but if we're spending $25,000 fireworks first week of July, wouldn't it be better spent in the dugouts and the ball fields? Maybe this year we can do without the fireworks, or maybe the folks that really appreciate the fireworks will invest a little money to help offset one cost or the other, whether it's the fireworks or the dugouts. I'd have to see the capital reserve funds that Parks and Rec has, but I don't see taxing everybody for something that probably is affordable through the Parks and Rec lines already. Article 20 is to add $5,000 to the Cemetery Maintenance Capital Reserve Fund. That's for perpetual care quite often. There's two different lines for the cemetery. Actually, there's 3 different capital reserve funds at the cemetery level. One's maintenance EFT. I'm not sure what EFT is, but there's $12,213 in that. Another one is cemetery water supply and irrigation. There's $7,729 in that. And cemetery maintenance is $4,618 in that. This is asking for it to go in the Cemetery Maintenance Capital Reserve Fund. So, I mean, there's two separate capital reserve funds that have the word maintenance in them. So I'm not sure which one they're asking to put monies in. That's something that shows some respect for the folks that have been here and helped build this town in the past. It's a noble cause. It will not send the message to the town government that enough is enough and just say no. Article 21 talking about asking the town to raise and appropriate it as an operating budget. Without all of these articles, totaling $5,513,976. Last year's budget was $4,997,810, and some adjustments because of contracts and stuff like that. So that's looking for a 10% increase in spending before the other articles on the warrant are voted on. I didn't take the time to add it up like I did with the school, but if the default budget is adopted by a no vote, I don't believe any area in the town is going to suffer. A 12-month difference between spending, 10% in 12 months. It's just not. Again, I think it's something that the message needs to be loud and the message needs to be clear. The taxpayers feel it, and there's some taxpayers who cannot afford it. So I'd ask you to vote no on that article and adopt the default budget of $4,997,810. Article 22 is to vote to change the purpose of the transfer station heavy equipment capital reserve fund. That was adopted in 2001, and they want to change it to purchase heavy equipment for the transfer station and recycling center. To the they want to change the wording from that to transfer station equipment capital reserve fund for the purpose of purchasing equipment not limited to heavy equipment, including but not limited to heavy equipment. It's going to take 3/5 of the voters to approve that. It's not a money article. I would say let your conscience be your guide on that. It's wording, what it'll do, what it'll effectively do is allow monies to be spent on heavy equipment, not necessarily for the recycling center, not necessarily, well, it would be necessarily for the transfer station, but it seems as though some of the recycling center stuff could be ignored for the purpose of buying a new, shiny new front end loader. They did just get a skid steer within the last 2 years, and that's equipment. I can't imagine that equipment is worn out. Article 23, they want to modify the provisions of RSA 72 Part 39A for elderly exemptions from property tax in the town. This would increase, when you read the article, it increases the minimum earnings so that more people can get exemptions. I think that, again, that's another conscience article. I myself would probably support that. Our elderly population need to be able to find some relief somehow, and this is one article that'll help relieve that population. Article 24, they want to adopt an ordinance waiving the fee to be charged for a permit to register one motor vehicle owned by any person who was captured or incarcerated for 30 or more days while serving in a qualified war or armed conflict. That doesn't seem to be anything that's going to cost anybody any money. It might save some of these vets monies that they've invested. the article of conscience there. The only thing I question is the satisfactory proof of these circumstances. You know, who gauges it? I know our town clerk is tasked with gauging it, and I know the current town clerk is very fair, and I don't know why that article wouldn't or shouldn't pass. Article the 25th it's been amended down to a 0. It's basically a waste of space on the page. You know, it doesn't show the intent of the petition, but it does. It is kind of addressed with one of those first articles that we mentioned, where the $25,000 was increased to $75,000. It was seeking the purpose it was seeking was to make sure that the Maple Street Bridge down in Union got taken care of quicker, sooner than later, by raising and appropriating some money specifically for that purpose. It got zeroed out at the deliberative session. Again, the folks that work on the budget committee, the department heads, everybody, they do exercise due diligence and trying to do the best thing for the town. I just listening to a lot of people and hearing the sentiment, you know, maybe this year in March of 2019, the only way to separate the governed from the governors is by saying no to these articles on the warrant. Next thing I want to talk about is the school district budget. And the 83rd article to our state constitution, the second part of our state constitution, provides for education of everybody in the state. In '93, there was an abstract from that because of the Claremont lawsuit, and the Claremont decision basically stated that Part 2 of Article 83 imposes a duty on the state to provide a constitutionally adequate education to every educable child in the public schools in New Hampshire, and to guarantee adequate funding, and that this duty is enforceable by the judiciary. The decision was a wellspring of a line of decisions that had radically changed both the manner in which public education is funded in New Hampshire and the respective roles of the judicial branch and the representative branches in formulating education policy. Whatever the state identifies as comprising constitutional adequacy, it must pay for. None of that financial obligation can be shifted to local school districts regardless of their relative wealth or need. That was paraphrased since out of the amendment. When Article 83 clearly states that municipalities, corporations, and stuff uses this as a guideline and uses the words fictional capitalization, anybody who sits in a board has already sworn an oath to uphold that state constitution. They've taken a sworn oath to the people they represent and the taxpayers of the town. They will not raise and appropriate monies under false pretenses. And I am sad to say that the school budget being presented on the warrant articles, in the warrant articles this year, is somewhat fictitious and capitalizes on the I could say ignorance, but it's not so much that, it's more misinformation. When we're told that people don't receive raises and stuff like that, it's provable that between 2017, June 30th of 2017 and June 30th of 2018, every employee, the average increase in wages and stuff over there, The lines went up by more than 15%. So it's hard to believe that anybody over at the school district did not enjoy a contractual increase in their wages. One of the things that we've been told is the average wage for Wakefield is $49,900, and the state average is $53,984. When a little bit of research showed that at the end of June of 18, 42 teachers were enjoying an average, and this is without benefits, an average of $51,003, and their benefit package averaged $23,955. Those are averages. The student population over there currently is 453 students at the K through 8, and 165 students going to high school, whether it's Kingswood or Spalding or any other, sorry about that, or any other school. A couple of things I found interesting. I got one in the budget increases over the years. Since 2010, they increased the budget by 2.5%, just over 2.5%, 2.53%. 2011, we saved 6.2% in the budget, and I think that was when we started taking the time to recognize where monies were being overspent. There was a push to do certain things. They started parking the buses over at the town garage, which saved a whole bunch, at least something like $7,000 annually in fuel cost. 2012, it increased from that number. After saving 6.2%, it increased from that new number up by 3.3%. So we weren't quite back to 2010 levels. 2013, it increased another 2.01%. So at the end of the year, 2013, we still hadn't gotten back to the spending levels of 2010. 2014, it increased 1.7%. Just going to jump ahead to 2018. There was a decrease of 1.4%. Actually, maybe I better not jump ahead. 2016, it increased 1.57%. 2017, it increased 3.65%. 2018, it went down from the levels at 2017. It went down 1.4%. And now the projected cost for 2020 is going to be an increase of 16.14% from the end of June of 2019. The contractual agreements and stuff like that are being proposed still have to go to the vote to be adopted, but apparently the spending has begun. The warrant articles with the school district are somewhat deceptive. The increases with the, this is another case where I would certainly encourage people to vote no. It's kind of like spending out of control. The estimated increases for the teachers and the paras are doubled the normal increases that we've ever seen before. Again, at the end of June 30th in 2018, those wages increased $9,000 more than that 15% mark. The claim was that there was no increase in cost spending over there. Article 2 and Article 4 regard wage increases. If these are voted down, they are currently enjoying contracts that will still increase their wages. Not 4.5%, but probably 2.5%. Article 3 and Article 4 is asking the people to, Article 3 and Article 5 are asking the voters, if those increases are voted down, will the voters allow to hold a special meeting to vote on it again? And of course, no means no. It's not very often that you come into a contract or contract negotiations and say, well, if we can't get everybody to vote for it, can we have a special meeting and have probably less people vote on it? We see it at the deliberative session. There was a budget presented. The special interest groups come in by the groves. They make an increase to it. So the operating budget gets increased. It's sad to witness the process be the end around to happen. Article 6 is a slush fund. They're asking, quite bluntly, they're asking for $200,000 for the purpose of reducing the general fund deficit. The only reason there's a general fund deficit, and they were warned about this by the superintendent that just left, the reason there's an illusion of a general fund deficit is because they were overspending lines and taking from other lines that weren't being diminished and spending without voter approval. It's sad to see that a presentation to the public can be so far from the facts. Again, Article 83 doesn't allow things to be spent that aren't appropriated for those purposes. By raising $200,000 for reducing the general fund deficit when there is no general fund deficit is creating a $200,000 slush fund and should be voted down. Article 7 is asking to raise and appropriate as an operating budget $10 million, $10,605,000, I should say that all over again. $10,605,989 as an operating budget. The budget that was approved in March of 2018 was $9,175,596. That number's somewhere, but I had it, and I'll have it again here in a second. Actually, the numbers that were approved in March of 2018 were $631,420. So they're asking for a $1 million increase based on their numbers. By the time they're done adding things up, they'll be spending $11,877,000, $11,877,085 if all of their articles are approved. The operating budget to have an increase, they're declaring that the default budget is $10,277,595 because of contractual agreements. That is much more than the 15% increase that you can prove they realized with their contractual agreements. It's almost twice as much as the increase on their contractual agreements. That is fictitious capitalization by definition, contrary to the Constitution they've sworn to uphold. Just say no on Article 7. Article 8 is looking to raise and appropriate $100,000 to be added to the Educationally Disabled Children's Expendable Trust Fund. Now, the claim is that there is many more students than previously budgeted for, but the fact is that there's $105,000 in the capital reserve fund for that purpose, and it has not been depleted or even used. So the presentation that the monies are being spent and we're underfunded doesn't hold water when the capital reserve fund is still intact. And for me to feel as though I'm being hoodwinked, I would encourage, I could never vote yes on something that I didn't feel as though was truthful. Article 9 wants to establish a window expendable trust fund with $200,000. Now, I can tell you, based on some experience while I sat on the school board, the windows do need to be replaced. There's more issues than just old windows, and there's good reason to replace those windows in the way that the school board had discussed in the past. There was a number thrown out costing $400,000 to replace the windows. Well, that's either 400 windows at $1,000 a piece, or 40 windows at $10,000. The numbers in the past, we've had phenomenal numbers thrown at us. It was supposed to cost us $600,000 to build the parking lot. It cost us $180,000. I cannot say that $200,000 to replace the windows would be money misspent. I think it's an overinflated number. I can tell you that for a few reasons there are legitimate reasons to raise and appropriate that money, spend it on that purpose, so long as it fits all of the criteria that previous boards have discussed. I'm going to jump down to Article 10, because this is where it goes double dipping on the windows. We were told in the past the last bit of asbestos in the school is in the caulking in the windows. We want to raise the money to replace the windows, and $200,000 would go to that. There's also school asbestos abatement, building repair. The building repair has $28,551 in it. The school security fund has $80,104 in it. That had a lot to do with the windows. To ask for in Article 10, $40,020 to be placed in the school district asbestos abatement and room renovation expendable trust fund, to me, is deceitful and double dipping at its best. If by replacing the windows you take out the rest of the asbestos, why would you want to raise another $40,000 to set over in another capital reserve fund? I would call that a slush fund, and I would certainly encourage the voters to shoot that one down. I'm going to go back to Article 9, Article 10 and Article 8, Article 10 and Article 9 should be one article for $200,000. Double dipping is not conforming to the way the Constitution's been set up for education purposes. Article 11, shall the Wakefield School District raise and appropriate the sum of $185,000 to be placed in the Wakefield School Transportation Expendable Trust Fund. That right now has $60,081.49 in it. We buy buses on a turnover schedule. In my opinion, the buses are not abused, not run into the ground like surrounding towns run their buses into the ground. This is one article that I would say could be put on hold for a year. Another no vote on that would help the taxpayers. Many good buses down there. Many of them are, we shouldn't be taking a 77 passenger bus every afternoon down to Rochester to pick up nobody, just drive back. There's a lot of things that would save on that transportation lines and stuff like that. Sometimes they get ignored. Maybe it'll get somebody's attention when people say no. Article 12, shall the Wakefield School District vote to establish a gym floor expendable trust fund and raise $20,000 to be placed in the same. School building repair has $28,551.78 in it. I think that gymnasium floor is in need of repair. Again, piling it on with 28,000, another 20, it'd be 48,000. But sometimes the numbers are blown up, overinflated. Things have been proven to be done for much less than presented to the voting public, voting taxpayers. Article 13, shall the Town of Wakefield School District vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $40,790 to be placed in a technology fund established in 2009 for the purpose of purchasing, replacing, and upgrading computers and related educational media technology in Wakefield School District. Right now, the technology fund has $7,445 in it. This fund has in the past bought equipment that is set in a classroom, unopened, dust collecting, because the people who supposedly needed it didn't even know how to use it. And it's sad to say that money has been squandered. There's books, I know for a fact, there's pallets of books, unopened, tossed in a dumpster because they couldn't find anywhere to give these unopened books of knowledge. The taxpayers spent a whole lot of money. I would encourage the town to vote no on that article this year. Again, it's a 1 year vote no straight down in order to send a clear message that wasteful spending should not be tolerated. And I don't know how else to get the message across. Article 14 wants to raise and appropriate $16,000 to be placed in the SAU Office Capital Reserve Trust Fund established in 2018. And it's for the purpose of building repair, maintenance, and equipment. Now, this again, to me, slush fund, double dipping. 2018, that modular was gone through. We had raised and appropriated monies. Actually, we took some monies out of the monies coming back from the old SAU 64. And it was earmarked for renovations. All of that was done up to current specs and expectations. Quality levels are we did a tour. Everything's wonderful. This is a fund that doesn't need to be built up right now, can certainly go 1 year without it. It's all new. In fact, at the end of the project, the contractor turned monies back to the town because they had over appropriated monies. Not even 2 years old, not necessary to raise and appropriate another $16,500 for that purpose. Town on Article 8, the school district on Article 15 wants to establish a maintenance contingency expendable trust fund for the purpose of covering unanticipated building repairs, maintenance, and equipment, and raise and appropriate the sum of $10,000 to be placed in the fund. I think there's already funding for anything unanticipated. This is it seems to be nebulous. It seems to be clouded with non-directional fundraising. It looks like a slush fund to me. So I don't know why the town's people, the taxpayers, would want to support that article. Certainly the final article, Article 16, this is an abuse of taxpayers' money if I've ever seen one. They want to have the school district authorize, indefinitely until rescinded, the retention of year-end unassigned general funds in the amount not to exceed, in any fiscal year, 2.5% of the current fiscal year's net assessment. Such fund balance retained can only be used to reduce the tax rate currently, can only be used to reduce the tax rate or emergency expenditures or over expenditures under RSA 32 Part 11, which are approved by the Department of Education. I'm glad to see the Budget Committee does not recommend this article. There's a number of articles on the warrant that they don't recommend, but this one is one way of overspending with no checks and balances, and it would be doing a disservice to each taxpayer. I don't see where it's designated to increase academic achievement. It only increases the ability for the school district and its leadership to misappropriate and misspend funds at their will. And that, I'm sorry, is a good that one article alone is a good reason to say no to the whole warrant. I hope you folks take the time and chew on a little bit of this. And I'm not, again, I know there's been some diligence on the Budget Committee's part to make sure this comes into reasonable, limited spending. It's fictitious capitalization on the part of the school district in a way I've never seen in town, and I've seen things for decades. The only way to control spending or control taxation is to stop spending. A no vote on these articles will send a clear message that the taxpayers and the voters of Wakefield have had enough and need some relief. Come back next year with these same things. Change the dates on the article, on the warrant. Try it again next year, but this year we need to think of more than the professionals in the profession of government. If this school warrant showed anything at all to improve educational academic achievement, there'd be reason for me to support it. But everything that I've researched, it seems as though that academic achievement level is the last thing that these warrants seek or support. Thank you for your time. Thank you, Jim. And thank you, Wakefield.